This comparison has been on my mind for a while. Even well before I got the Shure SM7B, I was doing research for these two microphones, and it was a comparison that was very close, meaning that the quality that you're getting out of these microphones is very similar. And it's not necessarily which one is better, but which one fits your content better. Welcome back to the Rebel Tech channel. I'm Justin, and in this video we're going to be doing a comparison between the AT4040 and the Shure SM7B and figuring out where these microphones fit in your content, because they're very different, but they are also similar in some aspects. Some of the tones that they have are similar, and I'm going to get into it in all the tests that we do. Now, of course, I've had the AT4040 for about 3 years now, actually, and the Shure SM7B I've had for less than a year, probably about 6 months by now, and I definitely have noticed those similarities in what kind of tone that they have and the darker tones that they produce. And I really love the tones of these microphones. These are my two favorite microphones outside of my Sennheiser. The Sennheiser is in a category of its own, and I don't know if I'll ever own a microphone that I love more than that, but these two are incredible. As far as my favorite condenser and favorite dynamic, these are it. And the shotgun is obviously number one. Maybe a Neumann might change my mind, but until that day, Sennheiser's still mine. So with these two, you have those darker tones and you have that low end that's really nice presence. And sometimes with microphones, the low end is too aggressive, but with these, it's a nice balance of low end and presence boost and all that stuff. I really feel that these microphones are well rounded. But before I get too far ahead of myself, let's get into the build and talk about how these things are constructed. As far as a overall thought on these are very well built. Shure and Audio-Technica make very well-made microphones, well-made equipment. They are really good at making things. And as far as the build quality is concerned, I do hold it in high regard. Some people don't, but I do hold it in high regard because I do feel that if you take the time and the effort to make a sturdy build, you took the time and effort to usually do more so in the whole aspect of it. But that doesn't apply for everything, but it does apply in this case. So to go a little bit deeper, the Shure SM7B, very hefty build. It's a big microphone, much bigger than I thought it would be when I first got it. And it's got a nice yoke mount here and does not have a shock mount like the AT4040, but it doesn't really need it because it has nice rejection of noise, which we're going to do as soon as I'm done talking about the Audio-Technica. And now, with the yoke mount, I do feel that helps with the rejection of noise, the full yoke mount. I mentioned this in my PD70 video. The half yoke mount, I think, affects the rejection of noise. And I did that comparison between the pod mic and it, and I really do think that's the difference. One more thing about the Shure SM7B, the XLR port outside of the body, I love it. I wasn't sure about it, no pun intended, but I do feel that it's a better setup. I don't know why, but I definitely feel like it's a better setup. And I can say the same thing, good segue here, about the Audio-Technica microphones because they have a separate like housing there for the XLR port. Of course, it's attached to the body, but it's not like in the body. It's not on the butt end. So with the AT4040, I love this thing. I love the way it's built. It looks nice. It's tucked in. It's really cool. I think that the Elgato mic looks very similar to it, the Wave mic, and I don't know if they were inspired by Audio-Technica microphones, but it definitely looks similar. So there is some type of crossover with these types of styles, and I do love this tucked in style. But as I said before, both of these are very hefty, very nice. When you feel you're holding it, you know that you got a good solid microphone. It really is nice and sturdy. Now, one more thing on the Audio-Technica, it does come with a shock mount, just so you know. That's a part of the build, but we'll see if it makes a difference. Let's do some rejection of noise and handling noise. I'm just going to tap the areas around it just a little bit. We'll start off with the AT4040. So because it's a condenser microphone, you probably heard a decent amount, but if you're just bumping it occasionally, you probably shouldn't have a problem. I had it on a boom arm on the Blue Compass for a while, using it for streams and stuff like that, and I never had a problem with it with handling noise or anything like that. I actually really like this as a streaming microphone, to be honest. It has a nice tone that really lends well to streaming. The rejection and noise, we'll get into that in this room and the Untreated Room, but I really do like it. I really do like it as a streaming mic, surprisingly. Now with the Shure, and you probably noticed that it rejects a little bit more noise than the Audio-Technica because it's a dynamic microphone and it's the Shure SM7B. I mean, that's basically it. I mean, it's one of those things that certain microphones are known for certain things, and rejection of handling noise is certainly one of those for the Shure SM7B. And I'm not going to hold that against the AT4040 because of the different styles of condenser and dynamic. So as far as the builds are concerned, I'm very close on this, but I will give a tiny, by a nose lead to the Shure SM7B because I really do love that build. And it looks a little bit better in my opinion, but it's really tough, but it's just a slight, like a nanometer away. So that's how I feel. If you feel any differently about the builds and everything like that, let me know down in the comments. So next up, let's get into some techie talk about all the specs, tech, and all the stuff that goes on it internally. And what I'll do here is I'll leave up a graphic like I usually do, and I'll talk about the things that kind of stand out for me and really are the major things with these microphones. So the first thing that stands out is the fact that one's a condenser and one's a dynamic. Easy enough. The other thing that stands out is their switches. Now, I will mention this in Techy Talk because they are techy. So you have a mid boost and a low cut filter on the Shure SM7B. As far as those are concerned, I do feel like the switches are based on a certain scenario, meaning that you're only looking for a certain sound. It's not necessarily something that's going to be applied to every situation, but you need to play it by ear, for lack of better terms. I mean, pretty much play it by ear. Now, on the other side, we have the AT4040 with a 10 dB pad, which the Shure does not have, and a 80 hertz low cut filter or high pass filter. So those are certainly things that can be used in certain scenarios. Most switches, when they have that option, are based on certain scenarios that you're in. The performer, the source that you have could dictate if you use them or you don't use them. Now, one more thing before we get into the frequency response, which, if you don't know, in my opinion, is the most important thing about a microphone, but that's just my opinion. If you agree or disagree, just be nice down in the comments and we could discuss it. The sensitivity. Obviously, there's going to be a big difference with sensitivity comparing a dynamic microphone to a condenser microphone, and even more so, especially with the Shure SM7B, which is a very quiet microphone. Speaking of that sensitivity, it is negative 59 decibels, which it needs a lot of gain to actually work. So, depending on your preamp, will determine if you need a cloud lifter or FET head, or you might want to invest in something a little better when it comes to preamps. The Zoom F6 offers plenty of gain, but I do use a FET head on this because I just think it sounds better. That's just my opinion. Now over to the AT4040, you have a negative 32 decibel sensitivity. Now, of course, with that sensitivity, you're not going to need a hefty preamp, but it's nice to have a good preamp regardless of what you're doing because it just reduces the hiss, and it's just a higher quality preamp will be better for your recording or whatever you're using it for. Now, the last thing in Techy Talk, frequency response curve. The frequency response on the 4040 is a standard 20 to 20, very easy to remember, while the Shure SM7B is from 50 hertz to 20 kilohertz. So you have a slight difference, not too crazy, and I really don't notice that much of a difference when I use it on my voice at least. I have noticed some sources get affected, but not that much. 50 hertz is just at that threshold where you're probably not going to notice anything substantial being missed. Now let's dive a little bit deeper into the actual curves. With the Shure SM7B, you have two options for your low end. One is from 50 Hz to the lows and the mid lows as we move on. Has a nice hump there, a natural low cut-ish filter. It kind of dips off a little bit there, and it has a nice steady curve there, like really smooth. Then you can engage the low cut filter, high pass filter, whatever you want to call it. And it goes, they say it, I think in the manual it says 200, but it starts at around 3. So it's really hefty, but it's an option. You don't necessarily need it, but it's there for you if you want to use it. Now with the AT4040, very similar, but it's boosted a little bit more. You notice it's right around 0 dB there on that low end, below 50, and then dips down around like 80-ish, and then rises back up and flattens out as we move into the mids and the low mids there. With the high pass filter, low cut filter, you have 80 hertz being rolled off. Now, of course, it's an option. You don't have to worry about it just not being there. You can take it off and put it back whenever you want. Sticking with the AT4040 on the mids, it's flat as a pancake. I love it. I love the tone of this, especially for spoken word. If you know microphones, you know flat midsection is usually good for spoken word and also helps you when you're trying to manipulate it. You don't have to hunt and peck for frequencies as hard as you would if something's like manipulated in the mids. Now to the Shure SM7B, we have a natural curve that is very flat, and it goes flat into the highs. With the mid boost, it is heavy. It's a heavy boost, like 2 to 4 decibels, and it's just one of those things that it really depends on the person, depends on the source. For me and my voice, I do not like it. I think it's a little too aggressive and it's a little too like mid-forward, but for certain people, that could be good for you. Now, lastly, sticking with the Shure SM7B and the highs, naturally it's bonkers, and with the high boost, the highs, and the mid boost, it's crazy as well. A lot of peaks, a lot of valleys, but doesn't affect the tone as well that much, because I do feel like it was tuned properly. And finally, the highs on the AT4040, which you have a nice presence boost around like that 6.5K, and then dips back down, and another presence boost after 10K. So it's nice. I really like this tone on the high end. It was tuned very well, and like I said, there's certain tuning of microphones that are like iffy, which I've spoken about a lot, but I definitely feel that both of these were tuned properly. But if I was to choose one and a winner of the frequency response, I will go with the AT4040, because I just like that midsection and I like that low end a little more. Nothing against the Shure SM7B. I just like it a little bit more. Okay, so now we're going to do a noise test and see how these things react with just being in a room. We're in my little studio here, mildly treated. There are people in the house, so you might hear that. I'm going to boost it up about 10 decibels in post and see what happens. So some things you may have heard, I have dehumidifier going on in the other room and laundry going on in the other room. So if you're in a situation where your laundry or your dehumidifier is close, this could be an issue. But remember, it was boosted. Now we're going to do an off-X rejection test, go around, do a little bit of distance and all that stuff. So I've been talking about 2-3 inches away from the microphones, and now we're going to back up. Now I'm about 2 to 3 feet away from the microphones. They're cocked a little to the side, so maybe that makes a difference. That certainly makes a difference with reducing the amount of plosives that you have. So good tip for anyone using a microphone. Good microphone etiquette, I guess that's called. Now on stage left, right here, we have the Shure SM7B side, and we're at 90 degrees on the Shure SM7B side, obviously. And this was going to sound like in my little studio here. The wall over there has a lot of stuff on it, so it's probably not going to bounce back directly, but it might get a little bit of echo. There's a lot of stuff, like I said, so it should be fine. And I think you're probably going to notice a lot more rejection on the Shure, but we're going to know in post. Well, I'm going to know in post. You're knowing right now what you're hearing, and let me know what you think about this 90-degree test. Now, lastly, the 180-degree test. These are both cardioid polar patterns, so you have rejection in the back and on the side. So let me know what you think about the rejection of noise and off-axis rejection, I should say, as well. So this is what it's going to be like in a mildly treated room, nothing too crazy, so you may relate to this. I think the untreated room is more relatable to most people. Okay, we're in the booth right now with these two really awesome microphones. I really do love these two. So let's talk about these microphones. I'm listening to the Shure SM7B right now, and it's natural. It's tone, you might be able to see. It's kind of blurry, but it's out of focus. But it's at the natural tone and everything like that. I will be doing a little bit of tests with the switches on these, but if you want any more in-depth analysis and like examples, go check out the individual videos. I go a little bit more in depth with them, but I will give you a little bit of examples with these. But naturally, I love the tone of the Shure SM7B. On my voice, it doesn't emphasize my nasally tone, and it really is a smooth, dark tone. Switching over to the AT4040, it still has that dark tone. And remember, I was saying to you guys before in the video that these two microphones are very similar, and this is where it is. This is where that shines, the darkness and the low end that it has. And you get up on the AT4040 and it gets that nice tone there. And of course, I don't have, let's get that in there, and you get a little nice tone there. And it's one of those things that it's different. It's not necessarily like for everybody, but I love the way this sounds. Even at a further distance, it actually keeps that low end right there. But if you get right on there, like 2-3 inches away, if I turn it to the side a bit, brush off some of those plosives, you notice that you got that nice low end. I really do love this thing. And I don't know. I really do think that these are comparable because they're two microphones that might not necessarily be thought of as the same, but if you really listen to them, they are very similar in tone. And you start listening to this one now, and it's very, very similar. Of course, it has the Shure SM7B sound, if that's even a thing. I mean, it is, but if you listen to the Joe Rogan podcast, you notice that they have that Shure SM7B sound. That's what it is. But for both of these microphones, they are good microphones to be used in long periods of time. So if you don't get like any fatigue from your listeners with listening to microphones like these. They're nice and smooth. They have a specific tone. If you like that tone, like me, I like the darker tone, the low end that it has, and it kind of just lays under there like a nice bed of, I don't know, fluff. Never thought I'd make that example. Let's do a plosive test before I make any other stupid statements. Shure SM7B naturally, without, and both. Now to the AT4040. It's a condenser. What do you expect? I highly recommend that. Links in the description. So the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to do a couple of tests with the different tones that these have to offer. And I will start off with taking off the pop screen or windscreen. And you're going to notice that it's a little more airy. The high ends are coming through a little bit more and not suppressed by a windscreen. And it's something that you can use and manipulate depending on your source, depending on the person. Highly recommend getting something like this because it could be a problem. But if you're looking for that, that's awesome because I've heard some female voices and some female vocalists on it without the pop screen, and they sound incredible. So take advantage of it if you just have to do one little thing. You already have it. Taking it off is not that hard. To the AT4040, you notice that it still has that dark tone, and it's amazing. I really love this microphone, And compared to the Shure SM7B with the pop screen off, on my voice at least, I prefer the AT4040. All right, so the low cut filter is on the Shure SM7B, and you notice from the frequency response that it's roughly around 200 that it starts cutting off. And you don't have that low end, so if you want to get a little closer, you won't have that emphasis on that low end. Now, to compare it to the AT4040, this is what it's going to sound like, and this is natural, the AT4040 natural. You need to determine what you're using this for and what you're using these mics for. You have the options, so you can use it however you see fit. If you have more people that would be good with the Shure SM7B and the options that you have, then go for that. And both of these can be used in a studio, so this is talking if you're actually using this in a studio. But if you're just streaming, or if you're doing a high-end podcast, Shure SM7B is a great option. Now, of course, both of these are overkill. If you're just doing standard like hobby stuff and you're not really too serious about it, you're just trying to get your feet wet. This is for people who are intermediate to serious, because you can get some high quality out of these. And I hear a lot of people say that, oh, well, I could get the same out of an AT2020 or like a Shure SM58. Good luck. Just like taken. Good luck. Now, for comparison's sake, here is the AT4040 with the low cut filter on. And you're going to notice that it's significant. You can hear it. You can hear it's gone, that 80 hertz. And I don't want to say that I wouldn't necessarily use this, but it would have to be something very specific that I would use it for. I don't hate it, but I definitely am not in love with it with my voice. Back to the Shure SM7B with the low cut filter, which is much more aggressive than the 4040. So here you go. All right, so now the mid boost is on the Shure SM7B, and you got that that airy sound. It definitely is shown, and in the frequency response you saw that it's emphasized a lot. It's really boosted, 2 to 4 decibels worth of it, and depending on what you're using it for, it's something that can be applied to a lot of things. My voice, not one of those things. I'm not really a big fan of it. There's a lot of air behind that, and I don't know, it's just not for me. That's just me. If you feel any different, let me know down in the comments and we can talk about it. Now, comparing it to the 4040, just for context, here's the example of what it is. Now, last on our list, the low cut filter and the mid booster on the Shure SM7B. And this is just a small example of what you're going to hear. It's got that old-timey radio sound, very mid-forward, and a lot of presence boost up high. And I personally, I'm not a fan of this tone. I love the Shure SM7B naturally with the regular windscreen, very vanilla. It kind of reflects my personality a little bit. Being a Scorpio, you kind of have hints of weirdness. But when I'm recording this, it's literally a day before my birthday, so interesting. Maybe my emphasis of Scorpio-ness is coming out. I don't know. I don't even know if that's even true. Let's switch over to the AT4040, and of course, yeah, it's a natural tone of this microphone and everything like that. I didn't use the pad. I didn't throw on the pad at all. It's just negative 10 dB. That's all it is. So if you want examples like that, I could throw a short out for you if you'd like, but it's really just dropping it down. All right, Untreated Room, AT4040, Shure SM7B. Let's get into some off-axis rejection, and we'll do some noise tests. I don't have the air conditioner in anymore. It used to be in that window, but I will turn on the fan for a little bit to give you a little bit of a noise test. If you want any other examples with these microphones, you could check out the individual videos, or you could just ask me down in the comments. So let's get into it. All right, so you may have heard some traffic going on in the background there. I also boosted it, as you saw in the corner. And let's turn on the fan a little bit. It's still warm on some days, so maybe you'll have a fan in your room, or if you like to have a fan on just to circulate the air, that could be something. But here's the example with the fan. the lay of the land is area rug underneath me. It's about like a 10 by 10 room, maybe 8 by 8 room. I don't know exactly. But for the most part, I want to have this room be the relatable one, meaning that not everybody has a fancy studio. Not everybody has an area that they can manipulate in a way to make it audibly sound. No pun. There's probably a pun in there somewhere. But right now we're going to do a off-axis test, just like we did in the studio, and see how these things react. So I'm about a foot away right now, and this is going to be the distance test. So if you have something else going on in the room in front of the microphones, keep that in mind. Possibly if you have a fan behind you, like I usually do in my studio. Luckily now it's getting cooler, so I don't have to worry about the fan being on as much. Alright, stage right. 90-degree test on the Shure SM7B side. This is going to be your off-axis rejection. There are windows on that side of the room that I'm speaking towards. So you may have to deal with some reflections off the glass or whatever it may be. There's some reflection off the ceiling, but it does go to a carpet that's on the floor. So keep that in mind as well. There's also a lot of stuff in the room, so that certainly helps. Alright, 180-degree test. Speaking to the same wall as before. It's not very vocal, that wall. It doesn't really speak a lot. It doesn't have much to say. But this is your off-axis rejection with the 180 degrees. They're both cardioid, so keep that in mind. I'm about like 2, maybe even 2.5 feet away from the rears of the microphones. And this is what you're going to hear in the untreated room. Alright, so there's your examples in the untreated room. Obviously, like I said, if you want any other examples, you could check out the individual videos, or you could ask me down in the comments and we could talk about it. Without any further ado, let's talk about these microphones after I've listened to them and give you my impressions on which one might be better, which one could be for you and your content. And that's it. That's the comparison between the AT4040 and the Shure SM7B. It's been a comparison that I've been looking forward to for a very long time, and I gotta say the 4040 is my choice. I might be pissing off some people, but I gotta admit, the things that came to mind when it was making that decision were the fact that the tones were very similar. Meaning that wasn't a factor that I was going to consider. I liked both of them, and they both were very similar. Obviously not the same, but similar. The real factor that came into play is the fact that I feel that the 4040 is more diverse in what you could use it for. Now, of course, you could use the Shure SM7B for broadcast, singing, and things like that. But I think, in my opinion, this microphone is a sneaky broadcast microphone. Hot take, I know. Sneaky broadcast. I do think that it can be used as a broadcast microphone. And I think I'm going to be splitting the time with the Shure SM7B and the AT4040 on my streams. So, that all being said, thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed it. If you liked the video, please hit the like button down below. It would be greatly appreciated. Helps this video, helps this channel, and really does get out to more people. That whole YouTube algorithm thing, it really is a pain in the butt to understand, but I know that likes help it. So tapping the microphone doesn't help either. But the other thing is comments. If you have any comments, questions, anything, down in the comment section. Also, like I was mentioning before, during my stream where you can see this microphone or the Shure SM7B, possibly other ones if people request them. I do take requests. I'm kind of like a cover band, but microphone person. You know what I mean. So, streams, comments, all I ask is you be nice, constructive, all that stuff. Easy enough. It's not, I don't have many rules on this channel, but that's it. Speaking of rules and where they apply, the Discord is up right now, so if you're interested, link is down in the description and on the banner on the channel. So you can join that, talk to people. If I'm not there, I'm sure eventually there will be plenty of people in the community that will join and help each other out. That's the point of this channel. It's a community. It's supposed to bring people together and talk, converse, and not argue. And that's all I got for you today. Until next time, take care. and I'll see you in the next video. Uh-oh. Oh God, the lady's head! Oh, giraffe lady! Oh, dear God! Oh, I don't like the giraffe lady. Go away, giraffe lady. Go away. Oh man, giraffe lady bad, giraffe lady bad. Oh, oh my God, she don't want to. She was going after the booty. Oh, oh boy. Now I'm wet again.